GNASS. Two degenerates, both sides of the border. John Santina, Alex Lacasse. The Great North American Sports Show.
Welcome in to another edition of GNASS. It's another day here in the cold Canadian winter, or at least if you're with me north of the border. I'm one of your hosts, as always, here in Toronto, John Santina. And with me, my roommate, my friend, my best friend when it comes to sports, Alex Lacasse. Alex, how you doing today, my friend?
We survived the deep freeze of 2023, John, and my liver may not thank me, but I am still upright.
We had our first rough day of Canadian winter as well, my friend. It was, let's see, I'm trying to do the conversion for you. It would have been like -10 for you guys.
With the wind chill?
Oh, no. With the wind chill. Actually, with the wind chill, yeah.
With the wind chill, we were down to like -50 here. New Mount Washington here in New Hampshire,
there you go.
home of the world's worst weather, set a new world record. I think it got down to like minus 105 with wind chill.
Oh, that is not fun. But the good news is you do have heaters, my friend. So
yes, the insulation held up well in my domicile.
And we have some big news too, as we had our first big trade of the NBA season.
Yes, John, but it is Super Bowl week here on GNASS, but we'll dive into the big game, cover a lot of different angles there. But before we do that, there's some big news in the world of sports that we really have to discuss. John's going to tell you everything you need to know about the potential sanctions Manchester City Football Club faces, and as John mentioned, the trade deadline season kicked off with a bang right before the All-Star game when Brooklyn Nets anti-Semitic point guard Kyrie Irving got traded to the Dallas Mavericks. We'll give you our thoughts on pairing two ball-dominant but no D superstars, and Kyrie and Luka is going to work out. Probably not going to work out. And on This Week in Social Media, find out which one of Kyrie's now former teammates on the Nets has zero trade value around the league, only making matters that much better for Kevin Durant. And what former EPL players are now coming out of the woodwork to claim almost an NCAA-like vacated championship in wake of the Man City news. And the Super Bowl is Gambling Christmas, as you know, John. So it's a Gambling Christmas edition of Degenerates Corner. John, Man City is in a little bit of hot water across the puddle. What do us dumb, ignorant Americans when it comes to footy need to know about these potential penalties?
So they're just a tad bit of trouble, my friend. So the Premier League has opened up a case against them with 100 plus violations listed in terms of financial violations. So in soccer or European football, there is basically a governing body and a lot of rules in place in each league. The overall rule set that governs each big European league is this thing called financial fair play. High level, what you're supposed to do is basically just turn a profit. Like without your billionaire owner, like having to invest his own money into the club. So essentially by your own means, like selling tickets, TV deals, jerseys, revenues.
That's a sweet deal for the owners.
Right? Exactly, you would think, but oftentimes, as we've seen, the owners find a way to, through third parties, oftentimes, like say, like they own some sort of consortium company or like a third party company will become the sponsor of the team, and then that's how they'll inject their private funds. Essentially, the Premier League has opened up this investigation with Manchester City. Note, this is the second one they've opened. We'll get into that in a second, but this one has 100 plus violations dating back to 2009, 2010. There's three separate periods in which they're charging Manchester City. The first one is 2009 to about 2013, when Roberto Mancini was with the club. The second one is in the mid, like shortly after that. I believe it's 2015 till 2018. And then the last period is 2020 until now, which is ironically just outside of, like, it's basically right when their last sanction ended. But what is happening is this extends to all of their sister clubs. And if the rumor on the streets is if this were to go through, Manchester City cannot appeal this. Why this is big is because the threats against Manchester City currently are points deductions, which means this would cost them league titles. And these are points deductions that are potentially historic. Now, this has raised a very interesting question, Alex. When you deduct points historically, because there's no playoffs in soccer, you could theoretically take a title away from someone. Now, would we consider that title legitimate if we go back and say, watch the highlights and we know City won all the games and had the best record that season, but because of a points deduction, say 10 years later, the banner doesn't stand?
I don't know, John. Let me answer that question with this question. Do the Louisville University alumni do they not think they won those Rick Pitino national championships because his staff was paying for escorts for recruits coming down on recruiting trips?
Yeah, exactly. And I still have my Reggie Bush Rose Bowl jersey, so that should tell you all you need to know. And that's sort of the question that's been raised with this because, as I mentioned, City has previously faced these kinds of violations before, like and injecting funds into their club, and they've been raised against FFP. They basically kind of scoffed at it and kept appealing it until they won their case. And to be fully transparent, like we're going to monitor this case. It's ever evolving, but I really don't think that the Premier League has the resourcing to beat Manchester City in a court case, dude. Like their private foreign sovereign wealth funds just have too much money for the Premier League to actually beat in any form of legal proceeding, quite frankly.
And so this would be adjudicated by the by British courts, not some sporting body.
That's the understanding so far, is it would likely be like the overall governing body, and that's why one of the threats is that they could potentially even be kicked out of the Premier League. Now, I don't think the punishments will go this far. Like even in other cases where we've seen teams gambling on their own games, generally speaking, they only get relegated as a maximum punishment. So a full expulsion from the pyramid system would be a relatively severe punishment, and I don't think it'll go that far, like I said. But yes, Alex, that's sort of what they've implied by saying like, there will be no appeals this time. There won't be this sort of back and forth process in an attempt to sort of limit City's usage of their resources. And also, to your point, not have this private sporting arbiter sort of oversee the case.
Sure. And so, John, maybe you can help me out. When you talk about this ambiguous nature of how these independent national wealth funds can use their money to infiltrate the financial book of their specific football club. Are there any examples of other clubs, maybe even in other leagues, where this has happened and there are some remotely similar punishments, or is what Manchester City is accused of doing, is this completely unprecedented, would you say?
So it's not that it's unprecedented. Manchester City's just sort of like the first that they've taken to court. Like it's not unprecedented to see these teams inject funds that way. We've seen it actually, this season in the Premier League with the new owners at Chelsea, the new owners at Newcastle United, and actually Paris Saint-Germain, like very famous cases of like these owners coming in and injecting all these funds and buying it. City is just really the first where we've seen a big league take them head on. Even, for example, with Barcelona, who's faced a number of financial violations just due to the fact that they really can't get their shit together in their books. Like they just keep buying expensive players and then they're unable to recoup the proper funds. The league is unwilling to take these teams on. It's really only been City that the Premier League aggressively tried to attack, and that's across all of the top leagues in Europe. So this, to a degree, is unprecedented, Alex, from the standpoint of the league trying to govern it.
Well, we'll stay on top of that, as I'm sure there's going to be a lot more developments, especially in the sense of going to court. We're going to take a quick break right off the bat here on GNASS and find out if the Nets are better off without one anti-Semitic douche, Kyrie Irving.
And we're back, just like the FA is on City's case, but hopefully we'll be more diligent than they will, as we had our first big trade of the season, Alex.
One would like to hope, John.
Well, Alex, the first big trade involved a player that you and I not the biggest fans of, but I mean, we'll give him credit because he is talented. Former superstar of the Boston Celtics and formerly now the Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving traded to the Dallas Mavericks. In return for, we'll just quickly go over it, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and was it a first and 2 conditional seconds?
An unprotected first and 2 seconds.
Yeah. So that was the whole package going over to Brooklyn. Kyrie
Irving,
and
Markieff Morris is going to Dallas.
And Markieff Morris going to Dallas. That is now Kyrie Irving as well going to Dallas to play with Luka Doncic. Alex, what are your thoughts on the trade, my friend?
So in terms of, I think the Nets got pretty fair value given how distressed of an asset Kyrie Irving was. And I think
are you saying that demanding a trade 72 hours earlier hurts your value?
Well, that, and he asked for a trade before he gets suspended. I mean,
regularly.
Right. And he's a known, he's a coach killer. He's a locker room killer. And so I think this really speaks to the Mavericks' desperation here. Excuse me. Yeah. I gotta wet my whistle. So I think Spencer Dinwiddie, I mean, the Nets know him. He's a reliable player. I mean, he really became a, not a superstar, but a really good NBA player during
budding all-star with the Nets. Yeah. Like budding all-star. But
and so granted, he's not a superstar name like Kyrie Irving. So how happy does this trade make Kevin Durant? Seeing how they conspired to get together during Kyrie's last year with the Celtics in 2019 to get to it was New York. They didn't know if they wanted to go to the Knicks or Nets, but one of the 2 New York teams. So I don't think this makes the Mavs any better. I mean, Markieff Morris, I guess it gives you a little bit of toughness, but I mean, who plays defense on the Mavericks right now? It's just like their offense was terrible, and it's not like they were winning a ton of games with the roster that they had right now. I mean, they were lucky to stay out of the play-in tournament, but yeah, I just don't see how the Mavericks, maybe they'll score more, but they'll just lose games 140-30 instead of 120-100 now.
For me, there are 2 immediate thoughts that came up with this trade. The first is that if I'm the Dallas GM, I make this trade 10 times out of 10, even though me as a fan, I fully expect this trade to fail. And the reason for that is you brought it up. Like, they're 2 ball dominant guards who don't play defense. And the biggest thing too is that Doncic can create. Kyrie prefers to create for himself though. So they're going to need a lot of the possession, a lot of the ball in order to score. It's a bit counterintuitive when you think of how the 2 of them play, but I get it from Dallas's perspective because they brought in so many guys that have had trouble meshing with Doncic, and to bring in an elite basketball player at what appears to be a cut rate price, I mean, you got to take that gamble. And even though it's a bit counterintuitive from a playing style perspective, you would like to think that with Christian Wood still on the roster, Kyrie Irving on the roster, you mentioned Markieff Morris and some of the other supporting pieces, even like Dwight Powell adding some toughness in the block, like some of these like more minor guys, you'd like to think that they have enough to build like a playoff team around Luka Doncic. But like I was saying, I fully don't expect this to work. And then the second one,
they're going to be a playoff team, and they'll probably get out of the play-in tournament. My issue is,
excuse me,
I just think when Luka doesn't have the ball on his hands on offense, he doesn't do anything.
No,
like
he doesn't, no.
He's pretty much now a spot-up shooter, and Luka's value to the offense is dribbling, drawing a crowd, and finding and making the right play and making the right decision. Kyrie Irving needs the ball in his hands. So if one of them is going to need to sacrifice here, and Kyrie Irving going into a contract year, I don't see that being likely. And so now Luka's going to have to, sacrifice some of his uses, which I guess in the grand scheme of things, he doesn't mind. But, only one of them can take the game, the last shot at the end of the game.
The saving grace here is that if you're Dallas, you've seen this work before with Kyrie in the sense that Luka can play that LeBron James type role, and then Kyrie can go back to what he was on Cleveland. Now, I don't think Kyrie will be cool with that. but we've seen him do it successfully and win a championship doing so. So, like I was saying, I get the thought process behind this. I just, to that point, like, I don't think it's going to work out because all the things you've mentioned, whether it's off the court or on the court, like Kyrie Irving just has this sort of negative cloud with him where it's just, he's almost like a locker room destroyer in a sense. And I wouldn't want a part of it. But that was my second thought out. When this blows up and Kyrie demands another trade or eventually walks via free agency, it won't be weird because it didn't work.
Right. And so I guess Dallas has always been an attractive place for free agents. So maybe I think that they're factoring that into their calculus, but you almost never hear of teams giving up a completely unprotected first round pick anymore. And so I think that as soon as that the Mavericks are willing to come to the table with no protections on that first round pick, you know, Spencer Dinwiddie is a fine return. Plus that pick, the Nets are probably banking that it's gonna blow up with Kyrie. It's not a matter of if, but when. And the Mavs are gonna have to take at least a step back and really figure out how they want to build it for, you know, at least a couple years around Luka, so that it's the most efficient, you know, raw balance and roster possible.
So I have another question for you. Speaking about that unprotected first round pick, you did say the teams which is true, teams very rarely trade their unprotected first round picks. Do you think that this was the best package available for Kyrie Irving? Because we've heard a few rumors come out now that there's a package centered around Jay Crowder and Chris Paul, as well as some picks. We don't know what those picks were. There's also a package centered around whatever remaining picks the Lakers might have left. So was this the best package that the Nets could have possibly yielded for Kyrie?
If I'm the Nets, I mean, there's no way that they didn't go to Kevin Durant and said at least hey, this is what we're gonna do. Like, you know, it may come as a surprise. I don't know, because in the way that you frame the question, I feel like if you're Kevin Durant, maybe he didn't want to risk Chris Paul being over the hill, and that's why they didn't make a move for Chris Paul, because at least on paper, you think that Kevin Durant would rather play with another superstar like Chris Paul, or at least a guy who has that superstar track record. Spencer Dinwiddie, and then again, they probably said well, we could send him to the Lakers. He'd be playing with Russell Westbrook again. He probably said hell no. So I think. So I think Spencer Dinwiddie was kind of that middle ground, and yeah, I honestly think that was probably maybe one of the better packages that they did get. And I'm sure the Lakers, given their lack of picks that are tradable, maybe there was some restrictions there. I mean, hasn't been reported, but that's me just spitballing. And
I really do wish they took the Lakers trade just for the lulz, but I do agree. Like, I don't know. There weren't too many places you could realistically ship Kyrie, and this was going to work out well.
And John, just quickly, we didn't have this on the prep sheet, but there are reports out there that Kevin Durant may get moved again. And Stephen A. Smith said today on First Take that the Celtics have supposedly been calling on Kevin Durant, and that would mean Jaylen Brown goes out. I don't want to do it this year. I think you need. Right now, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're playing like the best duo in the NBA. And yep, they have their ups and downs, but I think pound for pound, they're the best duo. I don't want to do it. If you can tell me that the Nets are just so desperate to just start over, now you got these picks, Kevin Durant can be had for anything less than Jaylen Brown, I'm in. I'll do it. I will do that.
That's a very unique situation that's likely not going to occur, though.
Right. And so I think, and this could be just Sean Marks talking to, whoever at ESPN saying hey, yeah, we'd give up Kevin Durant again, but Boston will give us Jaylen Brown. And so it could just be the Nets trying to drum up their own trade interest, which obviously didn't work in the offseason.
And we also do know that Woj has a little bit of a some of the ESPN writers do have a little pre-existing relationship with the net front office.
Yeah. We also call that a conflict of interest in real journalism. So anyways, I'm out on Kevin Durant this season. Off season, the Celtics don't win this championship, and you have any sense that Jaylen Brown's a flight risk, fine, I'll do it. I'll be willing to make that trade then. But this year, no, I'm out.
I think Kevin Durant at this point, it's a play it by ear, because I can't imagine them getting the assets they need to pull the trigger on that deal mid-season. That's the only thing that I see being the roadblock in that deal, especially this late in the game.
I think the Raptors, if the Raptors just want to start over and have Kevin Durant as their building block, I think the Raptors have the best package without having to strip down too much to go get him, given that they're a lot further to a championship than the Celtics are. The Celtics, like, that is a big, big, big gamble to make that trade for Kevin Durant and give up, the second best player on your team. If you're the Raptors, I think there's an argument you can sell that as we want to go in a new direction here.
If you're a team like the Raptors, if you can get that deal done without trading Scotty Barnes, there's a viable path to get it done. But even then, I'm not seeing a team that's going to be willing to part with that much mid-season, and make this work, because it's too much to sell mid-season unless you're sure you can make that. For example, even if it's the Raptors, right? I'm assuming to get this done, the Raptors would have to go up Scotty Barnes. I don't see Masai Ujiri being comfortable doing that mid-season if he's not guaranteed a playoff spot.
I think, you definitely need a playoff spot. And then I think, with Kevin Durant, the idea is hey, maybe we win a round, we drum up interest in this team, and then, you're off and running for next year. I think that would be a success if someone like the Raptors traded for him.
Exactly. But I think for Kevin Durant, that's going to be an off-season thing. But I think he's gone in the off-season.
Well, I mean, he gets 3 more years on that contract. So
that's why I was saying, the Nets actually have the one thing the Nets have with Kevin Durant is leverage. It's unfortunate, but they have that leverage. So that's why I was I don't see this getting done mid-season, but you never know. I mean, it is the NBA. It's the craziest with trades for a reason, and that's why they stay in the headline. Mm-hmm. But speaking of headlines, Alex, it is Gambling Christmas because we have the biggest game of the year.
Yes, Eagles, it is. Chiefs. There's this little football match called the SuperBowl. You might be familiar with it.
Huge game. Eagles Chiefs, everyone. Eagles Chiefs. Well, before we dive into it, let's talk about how these teams got here. And Alex, there was a bit of controversy at the end of one of our championship games, wasn't there?
Yeah, obviously, when the 49ers lost their third string quarterback in the second quarter of the NFC championship game, there really wasn't a whole lot left. I mean, Josh Johnson, God bless him, but it really wasn't up to the task. And then, when Brock Purdy couldn't throw the ball past 3 yards, we had to go back in the game. Yeah, that was over.
That was hard to watch, but yeah.
Yeah, no contest there. But in the AFC Championship game, John, do we think the Bengals have a legitimate gripe here that they got jobbed on the Chiefs' final drive, which allowed them to they still would have kicked a field goal there, but are we talking it was a 50-plus yard field goal or, a long but makeable field goal following the late hit out of bounds penalty on the Bengals on that final scramble, which, by the way, on one leg after his painkiller wore off in the first half, that was a ballsy play by Patrick Mahomes. So he earned my respect in that game for sure.
Patrick Mahomes with that play, he needed his leg for one play, and he used it exactly to a T. And to that point, it hurts me to say this a bit, but that was a soft call, but that's a penalty, man. And if you're the Cincinnati defense, you have to know that they always call touching the quarterback in today's day and age, especially once he's out of bounds.
I didn't think it was like a dirty play or anything. It was just a heat of the moment. His hands were up, but you have to be smarter than that there.
Exactly.
You know they're going to make that call, and you can't put it in the ref's hands at that
exactly.
point.
Do you want to know what it reminded me of? It's like when a guy in hockey gets a high sticking penalty by accident. It's he didn't mean to do it, but it's dude, it's the rule. Yeah, sure, that wasn't a hard hit. You touched Mahomes though when he was out of bounds. It literally says don't do that.
Right. So that begs the question: if that's Brock Purdy, do they call that penalty?
I think 9 times out of 10 they do. I think the moment that the flag went flying was not him touching the QB per se. It was the moment the QB hit the ground. And yeah, it might have been partially because Mahomes was running on the injured leg, but if Brock Purdy goes rolling,
he did a good job selling it. That's for sure.
That's what I was about to say. If Brock Purdy goes rolling around like that, you're seeing a 15-yard penalty for 100% of the time.
Would I have called that? No, but it was like watching it live, like I'm like, I didn't think, I'm like, it's 50-50 if that's what they actually called that. Then they threw the flag, and I was like, well, like, I mean, what did you expect? And
It's a tough call, man. It's a soft call, but like I said, they call that 9 out of 10 times, and like we even saw it in some of the. If you saw the post game clips in the Bengals tunnel, like guys are going up to him, going like, "Why the fuck are you touching the quarterback?"
right, and like poor Bengals.
I do feel for them here. Like this was one of those if it could go wrong, it did. Games
they played so hard all season to shed that they were the shed the Bungles label. They almost did by getting back to the Super Bowl. I would have conceded that that to get back to the Super Bowl after losing it when you're the Bengals of all teams, but to lose like that that hurts, and it was a Bungles way to lose a football game. I'm sorry, it was.
It it felt very like shoot myself in the foot.
Right, and they also like they didn't play great on those last couple drives in terms of game IQ and everything. So the Chiefs get to go to the Super Bowl. It's still well earned. Patrick Mahomes, to play on one leg and play as well as he did. I thought that was a really, really gutsy performance on his part.
Yep, fantastic. Another clutch performance for him, and 5 straight championship games. He's now in, I think, his third Super Bowl.
Third Super Bowl, yeah, third in 5 years.
So third in 5 years. Unbelievable job by him. And like I was saying before the playoffs, I thought the injury would slow him down, but man, like we could be seeing the start of one of the greatest careers in the history of football. But we'll save it for how he does in this game. And like you said, well deserved. And big shout out, by the way, to Chris Jones. He
played a good game.
Yeah, arguably the best defensive lineman in football. Like that game, if you didn't know who he was, you pretty much found out why he's making his case for Defensive Player of the Year, which is a huge, huge game. And Alex, we'll jump into the matchup ahead though. Eagles versus Chiefs. So where you want to start? How does it play out? Keys to victory? What do you want to do?
So I'm looking. I mean, it's been said, everywhere, but the Eagles dominate the offensive and defensive line, and that's it's not glamorous, but that's where these football games are won and lost. And for me, though, have the Eagles really been tested this season? And I guess that's where I want to start because just off the top of my head, you would think the 49ers were supposed to be a test, but nope. And maybe that's credit to the Eagles, but also, the 49ers were playing with one hand tied behind their back. It's
credit to the Eagles, but when you're down to like your 4th string quarterback, like you get an asterisk.
Yeah, it's an incomplete for sure.
Like,
so you play Dak Prescott twice, once with your backup quarterback, and that was a competitive game. You blew him out the second time, you blew him out the first time. The Giants, were good this season. Really no match. You play the Vikings in week 1, primetime Kirk Cousins. You stomp him. But do we really think that anyone the Eagles played is on the same caliber of the Chiefs? And so I guess we'll start there.
So for my answer, it's going to be a hard no. Like the NFC, it was just like the NFC was the weaker conference by far this year, and the competition level, especially when it comes to like, just look at for example, the biggest thing that would frighten me if I'm an Eagles fan is you brought up Dak Prescott. Let's look at the other quarterbacks that the Eagles have faced on a regular basis. Like we're talking about Daniel Jones. We just mentioned it there, Josh Johnson and Brock Purdy. We look at some of the other teams, Taylor Heineke, like that's like the Commanders quarterback. Like I'm trying to, it's hard to think
Heineke beat the Eagles.
Yeah, and like that's what I mean. Like I'm trying to think of other elite quarterbacks that they have played, and even if Patrick Mahomes is on one leg, which by the way he's had 2 extra weeks to heal, Patrick Mahomes will be by far the best quarterback that they've played all season, possibly in the past 2 years. And despite how good they are in the trenches, if Patrick Mahomes is close to healthy, him moving around the pocket, they haven't seen anything as good as him or with an unstoppable option like Travis Kelce.
So going back to the Super Bowl against the Bucs, when the Chiefs played Tom Brady and the Bucs won that game with their defensive line and their linebackers, and because just Mahomes couldn't get the throws off it. And so do we think the Eagles defensive line has any ability to do something similar in this game. I think the Chiefs' offensive line is a lot better from when they played in that game, personnel wise and scheme wise.
I agree, and the Chiefs learned from their mistakes in that game. They've built. We've seen them play, for example, a team like the Bengals, and we talked about the Bengals' dominance in the trenches in the I was about to say in the wild card in the divisional series weekend. We saw the Chiefs go out there and do the exact same thing to the Bengals. Like we've seen Chris Jones being a near game wrecker on the defensive end of the ball, and we've seen the Chiefs be able to protect Patrick Mahomes. Now, the Eagles, like I was saying, I think they have a very, very solid unit. They have one of the best rosters in football, but I think the biggest thing right here that we're going to see with them is shock value. These Chiefs, like we said, 5 straight championship games, 3rd Super Bowl. They're a battle-hardened team. This is a team that's ready to go despite any injuries. I think the Eagles are going to have to come out flying, but personally, I think they might start a little shell-shocked in this one just because of the opponent they faced.
Right, and that's been the thing with the Eagles all year. They are a very, very fast starting team. So if they get down early, does it snowball from there?
And that's exactly what I'm thinking.
If they have to, if this game is on Jalen Hurts and they have to pass their way back into it, and I think that is a big question mark for the Eagles. But I think if they can make Patrick Mahomes' life, anywhere as miserable as it was,
a few years ago
in the Super Bowl, then there's a chance, but I do like the Chiefs here. We can talk a little bit more about that, but I think when push comes to shove, Patrick Mahomes will be able to use his, even though he's not going to have McCole Hardman in this game, I think with the personnel that he does have, I think he'll make better use of them than Hurts and his full complement.
Yeah, he's been a lot better at spreading out the ball this year. Like, shout out to Juju. Pretty much every receiver with 3 names: Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I think, or Scantling Valdez. But but yeah, fantastic years this year as well with Travis Kelce. I think we got to give the Eagles some credit because I do think that they have, like I said, I think they might have the better overall roster. I don't trust that they're going to be able to. If they're going to need a lead and early on Patrick Mahomes and be able to in order to play the game plan that they want to play. And I can't see it happening because I think that the Chiefs are going to jump out quick and score quick. And for me, to that point, Alex, like we were saying, I think the Chiefs have this one. I think it's going to be a close game though. I do think the Eagles can put up points, but man, it
feels like a field goal game either way.
Exactly. And it also feels like Nick Sirianni at some point is going to shoot himself in the foot this game. I don't know why.
Right. And he is kind of like this caricature of, they pulled some drunk dude out of the stadium jail under Lincoln Financial Field and gave him a headset. So he is unproven in a game like this. And as we mentioned, the Eagles really haven't had a real test all year. They lose, an embarrassing game to the Commandos, but, division games are tough. They're tough for a reason because, Ron Rivera is a not incompetent head coach. And,
the key is not losing sometimes.
there is you have a familiarity with your division rivals. And so that just adds a little bit of complexity to those games. Even when you're an elite football team like the Eagles are. So I agree that I think the coaching edge is definitely going to Kansas City here. And there's the revenge factor. Andy Reid is a great, great football coach. And I think if he had things his way, he would have opted to coach his entire career in Philadelphia. And I know, when you're in those jobs, you're coaching till you get fired. And, not everybody has longevity in the $20 million contract that Bill Belichick has. But Andy Reid's a damn good football coach. And you can't underestimate that he's going to have something for Philadelphia. Even if, he's gone on, had great success in Kansas City. He has his, the best quarterback for my money in football right now, running his offense. but there's still always like, oh, you're the team that, yeah, you're the guys that fired me. All right. Like, so that's a slight little angle that I might be overlooked here, but
I also feel like in addition to like the revenge game factor, like I said, the Eagles have, if you look at the, like, take out the quarterbacks, the Eagles have a better roster. Like, you look at their defensive line, like Hassan Reddick, Javon Hargreave, Josh Sweat, and Brandon Graham. All four of those players have over 11 sacks. Like, this is like, and this is like, they have such a good roster. And I really feel like, to that point of revenge games, like Patrick Mahomes is looking at this like basically seeing like the Bucks like attack and plan of attack, and I think this is where they're going to come out and make their statement and really improve their legacy here.
Right, just like I think the whole narrative was, Patrick Mahomes up against Tom Brady. Here's his chance to, and like everybody's talking about the Chiefs and the Bucks. They've got to play a disrespect card. And now I think it's the Chiefs are, the shoes on the other foot there, and now the Chiefs get some. Everybody's talking about this Eagles team. We're still here.
We're still here, and we're good every fucking year.
Yeah, and that makes them, I think, dangerous.
I've also learned my lesson betting against the league quarterbacks. Tom Brady's been the cause of me losing a lot of money over the years, so I'm taking Patrick Mahomes until proven otherwise.
And I am on the Chiefs as well. I'm sure our consensus here, although I did, when we were doing a few air tests of the show last year, I did have the correct Super Bowl predictions. So trying to stay hot
guy.
there.
This fucking guy.
Yeah, I said Rams won, Bungles covered.
There you go, buddy.
Yep. And so, but we'll save the rest of that for Degenerates Corner, because it's time for This Week in Social Media, John, just because things online just happen a little bit too fast. And here at GNASS, so we just like to take a minute to appreciate or ridicule some of the best and worst of the cesspool that is social media. So we talked about Kyrie Irving off the top, and well, John, Ben Simmons gets talked about a lot as an NBA superstar, but
this guy, man,
Ben
Simmons. Oof.
I like NBA players who at least have some competency at the major core skills of basketball, passing, dribbling, shooting. Ben Simmons doesn't shoot.
The last one's kind of very important.
Ben Simmons doesn't shoot at all. And as coincidentally, it's been reported, our friends here at Legion Hoops recycling a report from Bobby Marks. And I don't know who this clown is. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. It must be some ESPN radio show that Bobby Marks is on. So Bobby Marks reporting that Ben Simmons has zero trade value around the league, and I say good. I'm glad at least the talent evaluators around the league don't buy into this fraud's hype. Unlike some of the stupid media members that cover the sport because they have to, ball wash for all these, talentless hacks. And so just good reporting there, Bobby Marks. And if your NBA team trades for Ben Simmons, one, because he's on such a great bargain of a contract, and two, he's talentless and useless. So yeah, good luck, Nets. You got sold a bill of goods on that one when you shipped out James Harden.
I love the attitude of when they acquired Ben Simmons, like, oh well, we can just flip him because he has value. Yeah, fuck off.
Zero value.
Fuck right off, guys.
It baffles me, John. It really does. John, we're going back to Manchester City for This Week in Social Media.
A quick one, just because it's a shout out to all the players trolling Manchester City since the announcement of this violation, so to speak. Because obviously we'll follow it as more details come out, but right now they're not sanctions, they're not punishments, it's just violations that have been charged to them. But former Premier League player Lucas Leiva commenting on the charge saying, "Am I a Premier League champion now at Manchester City?" and just brilliant troll job. Just gotta love Lucas doing it. Some cheeky Brazilian, but that's it for this week in social media. Just got to get the last one we can, my friend.
Absolutely. And so we'll roll right into Degenerates Corner.
Sometimes she goes, sometimes it does. She didn't go. It's the way she goes.
22 black, 22 black. Ass, son of a bitch.
Fucking way she goes, he said.
Oh no, why did I bet the company payroll? Oh, Gil's in a lot of trouble.
Can the boys beat the number? We'll find out on Degenerates Corner.
It's the way she goes, buddy. Fucking way she goes.
Here we go. It was not a good week last week for us, Al.
Yep,
Not at all.
The NFL is a cruel mistress, John. And if only the playoffs were as hot for me as the regular season. But nonetheless, it is the Super Bowl, John. We got to do some football related best bets here. Where are you going for your best bet?
We most definitely do. So for my best bet, I mean, we talked about who we both think is going to win this game. And I mean, if they're on plus money, you got to take it. I'm taking Kansas City on the money line to win plus 105. Folks, this game is pretty much a pick 'em. So even if you're an Eagles fan, take who you think is going to win. My best bet is Kansas City because I am a diehard Patrick Mahomes fan. I don't know why. That's just how it works. So I think Kansas City's going to win. I'm taking plus 105. If you're an Eagles fan, take the Eagles, but please take Kansas City. Alex, to you for your best bet.
Yep. No, yeah, definitely good value there with Kansas City. So I don't fault you for that pick at all. Going a little bit off the board here, but I mentioned that I feel like this is going to be a field goal game. These teams are very, very evenly matched, and whether the Eagles kind of control play here, and Patrick Mahomes has to, kind of pull a rabbit out of his hat, and make some, kind of miraculous plays down the stretch. I think this game's gonna come down to a field goal. I don't know. I think the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are gonna win this game, but again, it's a toss up here. So
also, just for one note, the spread is 1.5 points.
Yeah. So the Eagles are laying 1.5 here. So I had this game winning in a walk-off field goal. Doesn't matter who kicks it. So I'm hedged there if I'm wrong on the Chiefs. But
that is an amazing bet.
Either team is going to walk off with a field goal, and they'll be Super Bowl champions, and you get that at plus 1,000. So I little juicy there, and
that's a pretty good one.
But the Super Bowls have been close this century. Which is a fairly I've been watching the Super Bowl highlights marathon on the NFL Network, and
some of them were not
competitive Super Bowls outside of a handful for the first 30 or so, call it. That was a rarity. This competitive Super Bowls are really a 21st century thing. So let's
Cam Newton, if you're listening, that cover yours.
Yeah. He said fall on that ball. Couldn't do it. Anyways, John, to your long shot or parlay.
So for my long shot, it's going to be a very long shot because I'm going to bet on the Super Bowl MVP because I want to keep the Super Bowl themed. The Super Bowl MVP, now it's unfair, but majority of the time is a quarterback. So we're going to take who it would be if it was not a quarterback. For me, that would be Travis Kelce on the Kansas City side at plus 1,400, or Jalen Waddell on the Philadelphia side at plus 2,800. That's why they're long shots, but the payout is fantastic, folks. So that is my long shot at parlay.
I feel like for a receiver to consider, they either have to break or tie the receptions record or catch 3 touchdowns.
So here's the thing, though. It's funny you mentioned that because Travis Kelce in one of the, I believe it was 2 weeks ago in the wild card game, had 13 catches and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it had to be something like that. And Cooper Kupp won it last year.
Exactly. There you go. And Cooper Kupp had but same thing, 12 catches and 2 touchdowns.
You have to pretty much, for receiver, you have to go out and set the receptions record. And anyways, for my long shot, so I got the Chiefs on the money line in a parlay. I think they're gonna win, and like I just think that there's some juju with the Chiefs, and Mahomes showed me a lot in that AFC Championship game, which famous last words, because you need to be succeed in the
Alex,
NFL.
Look at what I'm wearing. I have many famous last words.
You need a lot of short-term memory loss and kind of really forget what you last see. But nonetheless, I'm on the Chiefs. College basketball. Tomorrow, we got Kansas State laying 3.5 at home in the Little Apple against Texas Christian University. I said, laying 3.5. Tomorrow night, we got the Nuggets on the money line at home over the Timberwolves. Tonight in the NBA, we have the Warriors at home against the Thunder. Thunder started back-to-back, but they go home after this Golden State game. So Golden State's at home. They should do fine. This is the Thunder after all. Bucks laying 4.5 points in Portland tonight. Hopefully the Bucks finish the first half strong. I don't, not that I follow them now, but Bucks should win. Hopefully by 5 or more. Jazz on the money line tonight. Mavericks are going to be a little shorthanded. Maybe there's some a little shell shock from them bringing in Kyrie Irving. We'll see where that team's head's at. And then John helping us out with a hockey winner tomorrow night, or excuse me, tonight. Tomorrow night. I got the Avalanche on the money line over the Penguins, and that is plus 39.12.
Penguins, by the way, shopping for Vancouver starting goaltender Thatcher Demko, according to the rumor mill. So usually when you got a leaky faucet in net, good news for your bets.
And we can only hope, and may the odds forever be in your favor, John.
Thank you, sir. As to you as well.
Oh,
any closing thoughts for our listeners or viewers, depending on where you get the show?
Oh boy. I'm not gonna do the tomahawk chop on air, so I thought better of it. We're not gonna do that.
So all I'm gonna say is like, subscribe, hit the bell, follow on Spotify if you get your podcast there. If you're an Eagles fan, QB hits. If you're a Chiefs fan, touchdown passes.
Oh, and subscribe to the newsletter, the GNASS official show newsletter. We love our subscribers. If you can't get enough GNASS, we'll have our sweat recaps. John and I will have some other sports content that you don't want to miss. So you can find that at alexander.lacasse.substack.com. Or no, alexanderlacasse.substack.com.
Also in our link tree.